AAFSW. It is with great pleasure that the Association of the American Foreign Service worldwide warmly welcome you to celebrate Women's History Month during these important times for women's rights and progress. Women are the pillars of society, the providers of life, healers and peace builders, innovators and connectors, and amazing multitaskers. These are some examples of what make us effective leaders. So congratulations and thank you to all the women attending today's events for all you do to make the world a better place. AAFSW is proud to recognize the exceptional vision, strength, and leadership women have demonstrated in so many ways. Today, we are delighted to introduce to you three outstanding and impactful women who have contributed to advancing women's causes in important and transformational ways. Edie Fraser is president and CIO of the Women Business Collaborative and founder and CIO of STEAM Connectors and Million Women Mentors. Jessica Robinson is CIO of PurePhone International and board chair of World Pulse. And Maria Cavalcanti is president of CIO of ProMujer. Before we begin this program, I would like to introduce our AAFSW president, Lara Center.
Thank you, Sheila, and good morning from Washington, D.C. Welcome to our program today, celebrating Women's History Month. Every year, Sheila puts together an amazing group of panelists to celebrate this wonderful event of women's history. I'd like to tell you a little bit about our organization. The Associates of the American Foreign Service Worldwide was established in 1960. We are a membership-based association representing the American foreign affairs community. We advocate for our community. We provide interesting and engaging events like today's. If you are interested to learn more about AAFSW, please check out our website at aafsw.org. Thank you.
Our moderator for today is Dr. Joanna Thanosopoulos Owen. Joanna, who is the Public Relations for AAFSW and Fundraising Chair.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all. I will be the moderator for today's big day. Happy Women's History Month, everybody. A few logistics. If you do have questions and answers, please, questions for the panelists to answer, please put them on the chat. We will do everything in the end of all the three speakers' presentations. Also, you are not going to be able to, we're not going to be able to see anybody of you, but you are going to be able to see us and the speakers. And enjoy this program. It's going to be a lot of information and a lot of fun. Have a nice time.
Thank you, Joanna. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Edie Fraser, who is a CIO of Women Business Collaborative, WBC, a nonprofit to accelerate equal positions, pay, and power for all the businesswomen. WBC works with businesswomen organizations, partners, and stakeholders. Edie spent 14 years as managing director at Diversified Search and founder and CIO of STEAM Connectors and Million Women Mentors, NWM, with 2.5 million commitments. As a consummate entrepreneur, Edie built 3 companies and several movements, along with producing reports and books, including Do Your Giving While You Are Living and Women's Entrepreneurship in America, the Chief Diversity Officer and the Diversity Primer. Edie?
Thank you. And let us stop and reflect the importance of AAFSW and what you all mean. So to Sheila and to Laura, to all of you that have been involved, is thank you for your service. As we do reflect on Women's History Month, it is so important that the globe be recognized, as we did on International Women's Day. But we need to make International Women's Day every day 365 days of the year, because everything we know is about women's leadership, women's support of one another as allies and elevators and mentors and sponsors. And we need to give back to our fellow women, our women of color, and our global women every day. I'd just like to start out by saying I was part of the Foreign Service, because when John Kennedy, president, asked what you were doing for your country, I came to the United States Peace Corps for 5 years and became an Africa desk officer, and really spent quite a bit of time building those programs. We were all part of the Foreign Service in those days, and what was truly remarkable was to see public servants at its best all over the world, and with our colleagues at the State Department and with all the embassies around the world. We know the world is a better place because of all of the participation in the Foreign Service. How proud we are to have some ambassadorial funds, but others that have served and women that are serving as never before. So again, it just shares with you. My journey then became really one of service, because once Martin Luther King was shot and Bobby Kennedy was shot, and we looked at, which we're still seeing in the US, including 2 big shootings this week, I said, is what can we do to better our country? So I spent 5 years in the United States Poverty Program, going to 50 communities across America, from inner city ghettos to migrant camps to Appalachia, with the capacity to understand and give. And today, there's never been a more important time with our sisters around the world to stop and think about what we're doing to drive change and to share that in a very significant way. So it was fun then to go and build a couple of public relations efforts, including we had the campaign to pass the Panama Canal treaties and other big efforts like that. When you learn the importance of building a movement or to building a galvanized effort. And clearly, as we look at supporting women across the globe and salute our worldwide prime ministers and presidents, because again, when we looked at COVID, it was the 7 countries with the strongest presidents as women that made the fastest efforts in the world. So we're always stopping to say. And when we looked at then what we could do, and I'll tell you just that we used to run, when we established the Business Women's Network 25 years ago, we brought women from 100 countries together, but business women, to come to the United States together and from every continent. I think when our borders closed and it was so tough to get visas, that effort was very sad to us, but we know the worldwide exchange, and for all the women's organizations that are advocating global, it is tremendous. In fact, is on our Women's Business Collaborative, our Chief Operating Officer, Gwen Young, came from that world of service. She served in Cameroon as head of AfriCare, but she served to build gender equality with Brookings Institute and is now with us. We all reach out as colleagues and we really look at what we can do. Have we helped 5 other women a day? So when we started STEM Connector, science, technology, engineering, and math, it was that we knew that it was 67% of the jobs. And we said, what can we do? Because the number of women was paltry. So we said, let's build a mentoring program. And we stood at the National Press Club in Washington. We had many embassies with us and global women. And with that, we announced a goal to get 1 million women to mentor, to sponsor, to provide internships, apprenticeships, or do online mentoring. And within the first 5 years, we achieved over 1 million. They are now at 2.2 million. That means giving 20 hours a year to a mentoring relationship or sponsoring another woman up the system. We know that our mentoring and our sponsorship and our elevation, even our international internships, mean the world. So it was very interesting as we looked at when the World Economic Forum said it would take 117 years still to get to parity and equity. That was 3 years ago. We said, what can we do about it? And what could we do here? So we established a nonprofit called Women's Business Collaborative with just that collaboration around very specific goals and objectives where we could accelerate our progress, because none of us are going to wait more than 20 more years without seeing parity and equity for all women. We may focus on business women, but we also know what the status is for worldwide leaders of our countries, our United States Senate and House of Representatives, which is finally 25%. We know we can drive change. Our state houses are really growing. But in that sphere of mayors and others, we are seeing tremendous growth in women's leadership. So what we have done is recruit 45 women's business organizations to drive together. And just to share with you, our basic goals are 9 areas, of which we'll all concur. One is looking at women chief executives, and I think we can look at the US, but we can look at every country and look at where women are making economic progress. We were really pleased to partner with Catalyst and the Committee of 200, and we did the first ever report on women CEOs up on our website in October of 2020, and shared now that in our Fortune 500, as of May 1, we'll have 8.6% women CEOs. And that's not good, but we were at 5.7% 2.5 years ago. So we celebrate every announcement of every CEO, and that goes beyond the Fortune to look at Russell, S&P companies, and globally, as well as the entrepreneurs that are doing so well. Our next issue was to look at why women are not moving up the system in business. And we call it, as you know, the C-suite, and the C-suite to CEOs. And we looked at over 100 worldwide studies, but what we found was in the US that women were 22% of the executive suite. But when you got down to look at it, only 5% were running profit and loss or business units. And that meant no economic power, no pathway to the role to the top, and less than 1% women of color. As we know, women of color are critical in everything we do, in every initiative. So thirdly, we set up a group on corporate boards. And I think you know, as in the Scandinavian countries where it's mandatory, and we're all tracking all over the world what it means, we look at the US. And there's good news, because 22% was the number we were at for women on public boards last year at this time. And when we started, all of us, with 11 big groups pushing women on boards and groups out of London like the 30% Club and others, we have seen a change. And Black Lives Matters helped us, right, of pushing women of color. Because in the last 5 months, we've seen an average of 40% women named each month for public boards. So there's an increase of women, there's a decrease in white men, and we're seeing our women of color at about 20 to 25% every month. We track every country and we name names of success. And then our fourth area is into the women entrepreneurs. And we look at that effort, and you know, worldwide, from India to Africa, all to East Europe, women entrepreneurs are the backbone of the economy in every country. So we are positioning and we are saluting women entrepreneurs. Our next area was to look at investment and capital. And what we saw was the need that women were only 5% of capital firms. And when we give women economic power to run capital firms or investment firms, we will see dramatic change. Diversity is so critical to us. There is no initiative we take that we don't want at least 25% women of color. And there are so much pipelines and global women. So we are also pushing parity and pay parity. We're asking companies to tell the story that there's pay parity, and we track that all across the globe. We also are pushing in a major way technology, women in technology, because we know when we mix the technology, it makes it great. So all we can say is together, as we do our forums and our roundtables and look at learning and listening, what can we learn? What we learned when we just surveyed 104 top leaders about the roles of women, and a big magazine coming out tomorrow, women name collaboration and persistence as areas that they saw as the biggest needs. So with that, they also named authenticity and action. With that, I just want to say to Karen and Jess and Maria, and to the organization, Sheila, we are all in this together, which is why our motto is WBC, faster together. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Heidi. You're wonderful, Edie. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. This was a very nice presentation. I have put in the chat the website information for people to reach out to you in the future. And we're looking forward to asking you some questions later in the program.
Thank you, Anna.
Jessica Robinson, who is following up as a presenter, is CEO of PurePoint International and the brand Consciously Secure Living, helping CEOs and C-level leaders bridge the gap among data security, cyber risk, and privacy. PurePoint International provides cybersecurity, consulting and training for financial services, insurance, and other middle market global companies, which start up to $350 million in revenue. Jessica's visions to create a different kind of security company has earned the company an award for international affairs and women's security from JC's Philippines, New York chapter for their work with Consciously Secure Living. Jessica is also on the board of the authentication technology company NetLock, board chair of WorldPass, and co-leads the Racial Equity Committee for Women in Cybersecurity. Jessica?
right. So it's a pleasure to be here today. Maybe this just isn't for you. That's what my computer science tutor said to me when I was with him and I was struggling through my first computer science class at university. Ever since I was a kid, I was someone who absolutely knew that security was for me. It was like I came into this world with a passion for security, and that this was my work in the world, as if I was a protector. And as a young girl, I enjoyed reading Nancy Drew books in my 7th grade year of school and read all of them at our middle school library that year. And as a product of the 80s, I saw Matthew Broderick in War Games, and I laughed and said, I absolutely have to do that. I have to be a hacker. And so I grew up with this duality of what does it mean to be this young woman who's going around and solving problems for people and helping them, and then connecting that with technology. And so my parents were amazing and helpful in getting me into different boot camps for engineering, which are extremely different from the engineering and cybersecurity camps that exist today. But it was so wonderful to be a part of that and to have that opportunity. And when I got to my freshman year in college, where I was a double major in computer science and law and security, I thought, I have arrived. I am ready to live this dream and start this plan for my life that I had had for years. And when I walked into my first computer science class, I didn't see anyone who looked like me. I don't recall seeing a woman, and the few people of color that I did see were Asian men. I started to think that maybe I didn't belong there. And after a while, I started to go to tutoring for help. Brad, who was my tutor, just said, this is all pretty basic. So if you don't understand this, maybe this just isn't for you. In that moment, I could feel all of this energy and I could feel my dream starting to ooze away from me. And I started to think, well, what am I going to do now? This was my dream. Computer science, security, putting this together. The way that I remember it was I dropped the class and then I dropped the major. But a few years back, I went and looked at the transcript and I actually got a B in the course, but I still dropped the major because I didn't think I could do it. Fast forward, over 15 years later, I was at the Tribeca Film Festival here in New York City, and I was speaking on a panel at the intersection of innovation and technology. And there was a film that was premiering, a documentary called Code, Debugging the Gender Gap. This documentary was sharing stories of women, how in their collegiate experience, women had entered into universities excited about starting careers in STEM, but that something happened along the way which caused them to take a different path, which explains the gender gap that we have in the workforce today. I couldn't believe it. I was sitting here in this auditorium watching this documentary going, this is my story. This is my life. And I started to feel like maybe the shame that I had had all of those years before, that it wasn't just me, that this was happening to multiple women across multiple universities, and that this was a systemic issue. And so at this time, I had already found my way back into cybersecurity. I had already started my business, PurePoint International. But it did help to give me context for my own experience. And today, as we said, we have 18% of women that are graduating with degrees in computer science. We have 10% or 20% right now of women make up the cybersecurity workforce. And these are just new numbers over the past couple of years. And 3% of Black practitioners make up the cybersecurity workforce today. So the question is, where are all of the people that we need to fill the 3 million cybersecurity jobs that we have open today? At the end of the day, my route back to cybersecurity was a non-traditional approach. When I created PurePoint, it was to create a different approach to security overall. But along the way, I had to study on weekends, I studied in the evenings, early mornings, I took classes. I didn't go back necessarily to the university, though I took some classes at NYU. And I had to learn on the job. So my approach to learning was very different. And that's part of what the industry is thinking today, and particularly people that are interested in bridging this gender gap, and also the gap for people of color within this industry. And so we're part of this discussion is, do college degrees really mean the same thing years ago that they mean today? Could we have people be in complete apprenticeships as to support their knowledge and learning technology as it relates to these roles? Can people be employees, or could they be freelancers? People want to be able to have an opportunity to get a wide variety of experience. And sometimes being a freelancer can be the best way to do that. What we do know is that not addressing this in a different way is a national security issue. Because with a generation of baby boomers retiring, we need people to not only fill these roles, but to fill the new technology roles that are going to be existing, not just today, but over the next decade. And so the way that we think about education and the way that we think about bringing in women and also bringing in people of color has to change, particularly now in this COVID environment, where we have more women that have left the workforce in recent decades. And so for me, when I started PurePoint International, it was really about thinking and creating a different approach to security. Something that I call a feminine approach versus a masculine approach. Something that had integrated solutions, and not just security solutions, but other solutions to help support a human-centered approach to security. It was about an approach that centered women and underrepresented populations. And that became our brand, Consciously Secure Living. Now, don't get me wrong, security is the core of what we do. And so we work with CEOs and C-level leaders in insurance companies and technology companies, helping them to protect the data that they're entrusted to safeguard and helping them to build and mature their cybersecurity programs. Because we do have a different approach. The leaders at those organizations tend, though, to be the most innovative, and what I find, in their industry, and most forward-thinking. Other individuals and organizations we work with, though, are nonprofits, movement leaders, and elected officials. With our approach, we are uniquely positioned to support in an integrated way people that are running for public office and that need support around security but don't have it. We're in a position to be able to support whistleblowers who need support from security, from a security perspective, that are being monitored and aren't sure what to do. We're in a position to help documentary filmmakers that are doing incredible work in the world, shedding light on topics that directly impact women in the world. But because of the work that they're doing, they are targeted online, and they're concerned for the safety of themselves, but also the subjects of their documentary. And a lot of times, we're the last resort. These organizations or individuals have already gone to law enforcement, and then they're referred to us. And so we have the privilege of being able to support them in their most vulnerable concern and situation. And I'm very happy and honored that we've had the opportunity to receive awards for the work that we're doing. And most recently on Friday, we received the Company of the Year award. And so as we continue this work, I'm excited to see what the future holds as we continue to expand it. But what continues to be clear and remain clear is the safety and security concerns that exist for women and women of color online. At the end of the day, their equity gap between women and men continues to exist. And there is a gap of over 100 years until experts say that we will reach gender equity. And that in any situation is not okay. 52% of women and girls have experienced online abuse. And we're seeing this over and over and over. The gender digital divide is real and it continues to grow, particularly in this COVID environment. Right now, 250 million fewer women than men use the internet, and that has only grown in this COVID environment. 200 million fewer women than men own a mobile phone. And in many parts of the world, that is the way that people connect to the internet. And only 10% of Silicon jobs are filled by women. And this goes back to this gender divide that's taking place and that starts really at the collegiate level and in many cases before that. Although there are wonderful programs now that are addressing this, this is still a major issue, particularly when we need women in the workforce now and today versus 10 years from now. And only 6% of app developers are women. Meet Olutosin. Olutosin is a World Pulse sister. Olutosin and her husband were living with her husband's family. Her and her husband both have master's degrees and live in Nigeria. It was 28 days after the birth of her first daughter, and she was exhausted. For anyone who's a mother can appreciate what that time in your life is like. So she asked her husband to hold the baby while she was able to just get some rest and do a couple of things. His response was to hit her in her jaw over and over and over, because that wasn't a man's job. That wasn't men's work. She was bleeding so much, she had to put a towel over her mouth to go to the hospital. And when she arrived, the doctor told her that in a marriage, typically it can take some time for a man before he would start to abuse his wife. But once he starts, he doesn't stop. So Olutosin had to make a decision. She had to decide whether she was going to leave, whether she was going to stay and do nothing, or if there was another option. Her doctor suggested exposing him to women's rights concerns, but that of course, this would be a decision she would have to make for herself too. After this occurred a few more times, Olutosin put down her foot and she told her husband that he had to stop and that he had to support her as a woman and an educated woman, where she felt so much shame being in an abusive relationship that as both of them having master's degree, she didn't think or had seen this type of abuse happen in a marriage like this. And so she too, in supporting herself, after he prostrated down, got down on his knees, begged her to not leave, she went into a cyber cafe and she Googled women's empowerment, and World Pulse came up. So she clicked on World Pulse, and there she came into a community of women. She started to write her own words. share her story of abuse. And she started to share her poetry. And that began a long journey of her not only empowering herself, but empowering 6,000 other women. Olutosun has many initiatives that she does, but this one that you see pictured here is called Trash to Treasure, because she felt that she was trash. And so now what she does is she takes trash that people throw away and she creates beautiful artwork, forms of treasure, to help explain and show her own journey, because of course she is treasure. Olutosun has another initiative that she cares deeply about at this moment. She is very focused on helping women who do not read or write leave abusive situations. So she has a farm, a sustainable farm that she is creating, where she wants women, no matter their background, to be able to come if they need shelter, food, or money. Because those are the three things that keep a woman in an abusive situation. And she says that these women are no different from her, which is why she absolutely has to help them. This is the power of the World Pulse Network, and the power of being connected with other women, the power of being connected to your voice, and the power of being connected to resources. All things that I wish that I had more of when I was a freshman in college, dropping my computer science major. So what is World Pulse? World Pulse is an independent, women-led social network for social change. Think of it as a Facebook for women. It is a safe, supportive online space where women can come, share their story, connect with other women, and find resources to help support their passions in the world. It is a network of 75,000 women in 190 countries. And online abuse is extremely real. So having a safe and supportive space for women to come to is absolutely necessary in the world today. This World Pulse member from Pakistan stated that the online blackmail that she experienced was so bad that she wanted to commit suicide. And then searching on her laptop, she came across World Pulse and found someone who had a similar story to hers. She got encouragement and decided to stand up for herself in her honor, and also decided to work with other women that were victims of the same thing that she was experiencing. That is the power of World Pulse. And so how does this work? Women come onto the platform. They have an opportunity to speak and share their voice, many of whom are sharing their story for the first time, like Olutosun, sharing a story of abuse, one that women in many cases connect with shame. This is an opportunity also to connect with other women, where you can connect with women in another part of the world that is experiencing the same issue as you, and you can share ideas and you can encourage each other. It's also an opportunity to look and consider resources. And so domestic violence is one topic, but there are many topics, whether it's sustainability, whether it's thinking about the environment, thinking about how to support young women and girls in education. And then there's also digital trainings where women have the opportunity to receive trainings that empower themselves, but also that they can empower the communities that they serve. This is the power of World Pulse. In the 2020 Impact Survey, our respondents stated that there was a 76% increased belief in the power of their own voice by coming onto the platform. In terms of resources, nearly $5,000 was the average financial value gained by those who access new resources. This also includes speaking engagements, the opportunity to collaborate with other women that are on the platform to support their initiatives. And 57% said that they grew their network. So on average, one woman comes onto the platform, she will impact 2,000 more. So what can you do to support World Pulse today? Well, you can come on and you can join our social network and you can create an account. We would love to have you on, and you can connect with other incredible women on the platform. We would also invite you to share your story. You can host an encourager party at your workplace. And so what this means, you could have an encourager party where you and all of your team and staff come onto the platform and encourage other women and read their stories. And then of course you can donate at worldpulse.com, where every $50 supports one woman who goes on to impact 2,000 more. So I encourage all of you to log on and rise up and help speed up this global change with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jessica. This was very eye-opening for all of us, I'm sure. We're continuing with Maria Cavalcanti, who is the president and CEO of PromuHer, a leading social enterprise and pioneer in women's empowerment in Latin America. For over 25 years, Maria has worked with a wide range of business and non-profit organizations around the world, becoming an expert on impact investment, women's empowerment, and financial inclusion. She is the co-founder and former managing partner of First Impact Investing, a private equity fund in Brazil. Additionally, she served as Chief Strategy Officer for Fundación Avina, where she spearheaded strategic and operational initiatives across 15 countries. In 2019, she was named among Apolitical's Gender Equality Top 100, the most influential people in global policy. She has served on international boards, including the Aspen Network of Development Entrepreneurs, PYME Capital Fund, and funds, and currently serves as co-chair of Partnership for Responsible Financial Inclusion. Maria holds a Master's of Business Administration degree from the University of Texas, a Master's of Science in Information Science from Columbia University, and a Bachelor's of Arts from Universiale Federal de Ceará. Maria.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen now. When I was asked to share some of my own paths towards leadership, I decided to share with you the picture, which I remember I thought I was signing my first contract. And soon enough learned that it wasn't. And I was the first girl in a family of boys. And I was so happy to be the first person that could now sign the new contracts. And my idea was at 5-year-old to become an entrepreneur. My dreams were at least questioned very much in the same way that Jessica was sharing. Is this your space? And I decided to call on the person that always held me when I was unhappy. And it was my great-grandmother, who was born in the late 1800s and lived to be 103 years old, and always worked in the most challenging spaces. And when I called her, she said, you can always work with me, and you're always going to be the leader. You're always going to be a leader. You have to decide the type of leader you want to be. And that was how I started this journey towards leadership. Women leadership is predicated in gender equality. in almost 70 years since it was first recognized as a universal right in 1948, gender equality has yet to become a reality. In fact, just past women participate about 50% in the labor market. Women today only bring in about 37% of the GDP in the world. And according to the World Economic Forum, if things continue the way they are, we are not going to see gender equality for another 70 years. So this puts women leadership at risk, very much where we are. So while I appreciate, and I really thrive during March, because we all look into what we have accomplished and what we have done, and we share our stories. And as Edie brought up earlier today, it cannot be one day, it cannot be 1 month, it cannot be 1 year. So this is the time for us to start looking into what is it that we can do to really turn this in a way that we exponentially grow towards a more equal world. So this is the time for us to talk about what we can do, both as men and women, because gender equality is not a female issue, it's a human rights, right? So my path to leadership was very much finding the different challenges in the world. I wanted to be an artist and a businesswoman. I wanted to be in finance and in science. And always coming back to my great-grandmother's words and saying, I have to decide for myself what kind of leadership I wanted to follow. And it was when I was first invited to join ProMujer that I realized that all my work that I had done in finance, in technology, in strategic consulting, and in the art world as well, that had led me to be prepared to lead this organization that I love and adore and completely committed to today, and I wanted to share with all of you. So Latin America is a region where women are still facing huge challenge to become one more person that has a voice and has a space at the table. What we see today is a gender equality that has different forms in Latin America. Domestic violence, we have inadequate healthcare, we have inadequate family planning, unpaid work, informal employment, and challenge to access to capital. For low-income women, which are the women that we most focus on with ProMujer, these are sometimes unattainable challenges. What we've seen is that with COVID, the crisis has really taken a different level. And we see an area where we before had situations of being the second worst region for domestic violence. Today, Latin America is unfortunately moving backwards towards domestic violence after COVID. And we have now increases of domestic violences in Argentina for 25% to 75% in El Salvador to over 100% of sexual harassment complaints in Colombia. Women still face a challenge of going into the market, being accepted as an equal, and then have challenges with regards to traveling. Today, every man makes 17% more than a female colleague. So how to displace all of this, how to go and work with throughout the challenge that women have in Latin America, and how to work with, especially given the situation in COVID, where women were even more affected due to the types of professions that the sectors that they participate in the labor market, sectors that are workers, they are domestic workers, they work in the hospitality and retail industry. They also are the caretakers. And at the same time, they also come home and have the burden of care, both for the elderly as well as their children. So how do we move on with a message of hope and a message that really elevates women throughout Latin America and puts them on the path for the type of leadership that they want to follow? With that, although we have tons of data, I think that it's always very important to put a face, to put a story, to put a person behind it. So I wanted to share with you a video of one of our clients, Alejandra, in Nicaragua.
Mi nombre es María Alejandra Rodríguez Martínez. Vivo en Carazo, Jinotepe, Nicaragua. Tuve una vida muy dura desde mi niñez. Quedé huérfana cuando tenía 7 años. Pero es duro para una mujer soltera que esté sola y con 3 hijos. Trabajar en el mercado, tenía que vender más, tenía que buscar para sobrevivir yo. Me acuerdo que un día se me acercó una señora mucho le estimaba, viene y me dice: doña Alejandra, vaya a ver que allá están reunidos por mujer, se van a formar grupos de crédito. Y me voy rápido yo con mi delantal con todo. Entonces, como todo el mundo me conoce, véngase a mi grupo, doña Alejandra, véngase a mi grupo. Y entonces, y así fue. Estando allí, bueno, me eligieron como presidenta del grupo. Allí por mujer me prestaron con $100. ¿Qué institución es esa que va a tener la confianza que esa mujer le va a pagar a ProMujer?
Mi nombre es Gisela del Carmen Larios Mercado. Tengo 5 años de trabajar en ProMujer. Trabajo como asesora de banca comunal, trabajo de campo, que les enseñamos cómo invertir en su negocio, hablamos sobre la salud, lo básico para prevenir las enfermedades.
Y entonces Iris Gisela viene y me dice: doña Alejandra, usted tiene que hacerse el pago. Ni modo, pues me lo voy a tener que hacer. Es cervicuterino, doña Alejandra, pero le está empezando, es poquito lo que usted tiene. Y me acuerdo de que yo andaba como aturdida. Y lloré. Ya no tengo más el préstamo porque era empresa. El préstamo le va a prestar a una persona con cáncer. Pero ¿cuál fue mi sorpresa cuando vinieron aquí? Vino la asesora con las mujeres, nuestras compañeras. Dice: doña Alejandra, venimos aquí de usted para que usted firme su crédito. ¿Lo va a querer, verdad? Me dice. Me sentí indefensa de poder en ese momento decirle gracias. Yo necesitaba que alguien creyera en mí. Yo toqué puertas en diferentes lugares y no las encontré. Pero ProMujer me abrió puertas. Un año después me dijeron: usted está libre del cáncer. Me dijeron: usted es una mujer fuerte, usted es una mujer valiente, vaya y enfréntese con la vida. Hoy no sobrevivo, hoy vivo.
So ProMujer is an organization that has been working over 3 decades in Latin America, empowering women. And we work focusing on low-income women, which sometimes are not necessarily on the forefront of public policies, of capital markets, and even sometimes when we're thinking of feminist organizations and women empowerment organizations. Over these 30 years, we have disbursed over $4.1 billion in loans. We have just provided over 10 million healthcare interventions and trained 100,000 women. We have reached 2 million families and we're just starting our work. The way we work in Latin America is we provide access to capital, we provide healthcare, and we provide capacity building to women. But we also have seen that the needs of women have changed. So we have changed ourselves throughout our history in Latin America. We have operated traditionally in Argentina, Bolivia, Mexico, Peru, and Nicaragua, and felt that there was a need for us to expand, but expand very fastly because we didn't really have an opportunity to wait and create everything from scratch. So we moved into a partnership model to really reach the rest of Latin America and do different things as well. We do both an operating services, and so in some cases we actually are the operator and provide the services, including the different types of financial services that women need in Latin America. Sometimes we are the clinics, we are the healthcare provider and the health insurance provider. And in some cases, we also felt that there is an opportunity for us to multiply our impact by investing, by becoming an investor with what we call the gender lens investing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about these things here with you and see what is the path that we have taken to really move the needle towards gender equality in Latin America, and then leading them to women having a place at the table in all forms of decision making and feeling that they have the support for financial security, healthcare security, mental health security, as well as physical security. Today, we have offices in about 5 countries in Latin America, but operate in about 12 of them. We have right now under our financial services, as of March this year, we have about $158 million lent to women in Latin America, and it's about 200,000 women. We have about 150,000 clients throughout the region and 142 branches and clinics. We feel that our work is very powerful from a perspective of having the network. So we have a very large network of credit officers that have this relationship with the financial clients, and a very broad network of client health workers that have a relationship with the patients. And that allows for a trust relationship for us to understand the needs the clients have, to understand what are the challenges that they have, and then come up with solutions that are client-centric, that address their needs. We go beyond that and also look into what kind of training they need in terms of what kind of the different types of capacity building, may it be entrepreneurship, digital literacy, and sometimes financial inclusion. Financial inclusion is part of our methodology in terms of financial inclusion training is part of our methodology in terms of the type of loans that we provide under microfinance. But we feel that it's important for us to take a step forward, because women need to have the opportunity not only to get into the market, but to grow much farther. So today we have about, we are very much the largest women organization in Latin America, Women for Women. We have about 1,400 employees. Our leadership is primarily female, as well as our clients. Our clients under the communal banking, and I'll explain a little bit about that. Our client has our clients have participate in the banking itself, and 58,000 of these women take leadership positions on the communal banks throughout Latin America. The fund, our role as an investor, we felt that it was important for us to look into the market in Latin America and start pushing and influencing companies to create a better environment to women, to include women and girls in their products and development of services, the development of product and services, as well as their supply chain, including sales, to include governance and leadership that had a gender equality component, and also looking into the overall supply chain. So with that, we've decided that not only would be operators, but also become an investor in the region. So we partnered with an organization in a Canadian fund, and we have invested actually now $30 million in 22 portfolio companies throughout the region. And we apply these lenses, making sure that the companies, if they're not where they should be, that they get there. May it be through a remediation project in terms of the workspace, the workspace, or new policies, or ensuring that they have gender equality representation throughout their leadership and their governance. So a little bit more detailed here. We see that every woman has a unique story, and unique needs. So when we look into healthcare, we look into providing different types of healthcares throughout a three-pronged platform: the physical spaces, the community health workers, and the digital channels that allow them to have both education, preventive, and primary care, as well as access to secondary care. So we work through different types of non-communicable diseases, anywhere from chronic disease such as diabetes, high blood pressure, and predisposal to cancer, cervical and breast cancer, as well as supporting families with sexual and reproductive health. We also work very closely with our women for the challenge of gender-based violence. We see that both it's domestic violence as well as violence throughout their lives. So we're working with a lot of partners, working with them, not only with education, but also having referral programs of where they can go to get support from physical security, shelters, legal support, and even how to negotiate their position within their families, but also to be able to deal with the local police services. One of the things that we thought that was mostly important as well was mental health. Not only the COVID crisis has really created another layer of challenges for women, but even before, women were already overburdened with the pressures of raising a family, of being a wife, of bringing in the income to the house. Well, most of the women that we work with are on their own business or are about to start one. So we see that there's this need for them to really feel supported from the perspective of healthcare. So what we did, we brought healthcare into their lives, that making it much easier. Our relationship with women have been very strong from the get-go in terms of empowerment classes and very much having a sense of community. Soon after that, in the first 30 years, we started working very closely with access to capital. But these women were not the ones that would have the time or even the resources to take care of their family and ultimately take care of themselves. So we feel that healthcare done in a way that addresses their needs and also gets to them in whatever platform, in whatever way that is more convenient for them is very powerful. From a perspective of access to capital, we see women in very different places of their curve of capital in Latin America. From a perspective of microfinance, we still are one of the few organizations that coming in and start working with a woman who has never had borrowed any monies. And that is very important because there is still a huge constituency of women that have not yet entered the market. They don't have a credit history. They don't have a basic knowledge of the financial, of managing their fundings and financial training overall. So that those are the communal banks, and we bring them in a way that it's very supportive, and there's a lot of room for training. But we also felt that as these women grew in their business, in their careers, and really felt that they were ready for more challenges, that we needed to open our portfolio of services in the financial service to address other things. And that's when we added personal loans, SME loans, saving accounts, microinsurance, as well as home improvement loans, because most of the women that really want to have a place where their family is safe, but they don't have access to the bank network. To this day, more than 35% of women in Latin America are not bankerized. And this is after the COVID, in which big strides were done over the last year. And then as we talked, we also do the part of the gender lens investing, in which we really look into the revenue-based loans. So the loans are based on whatever income that they are bringing in, as well as mezzanine loans, in which are bigger tickets loans for female entrepreneurs that are farther down and need additional capital, and they have no other way of accessing that capital. But we're also very excited about our training components. We work with the financial training, the financial literacy is very important. We're creating the first entrepreneurship center for Latin America, for low-income women in Latin America, because a lot of the accelerators and incubators and entrepreneurship programs that are out there take into consideration the more traditional entrepreneur that is well educated, that comes from a STEM background. And what we see is that there is a huge constituency of women that do not fit that mode. And so we're about to launch the first center for entrepreneurship for low-income women in Latin America, and we're very excited about that. We do mentorship in a way that is accessible, and it's also meaningful in terms of having the women being matched with other people that can provide them the type of support that they need at that point. We work with digital literacy, bringing into both from the client's daughters to all the way to the older clients, especially with the challenge of cybersecurity, so they can feel comfortable and they can get into another space and another side of our platform, which is the digital space, in a much easier way, in a much more comfortable way, in feeling safe and feeling comfortable about that. We're very excited about the overall aspects of training in Latin America right now, because we have moved very quickly into the digital space. So now we can reach out women that before were not able to come to our offices to get trained. We reach out young women that sometimes don't have ways of participating into a class, but can then join us through a Facebook class. So we're very excited about this new space, and this is where we feel that we're getting into the next phase. I wanted to take a minute before we end to ask you to join us, to collaborate with us, and just really join the ProMujer network. I'm going to share one more video with you very quick. This one is a very quick, and it's just about the revolution we want to start. Oops. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. This was wonderful. I have received many questions, so I'm going to try to tackle them as much as possible, but I'm going to start with Eddie just because she said she may have to leave at 12:15. I received this question. Many women state that in the past, they have faced more adversity by other women in the work environment rather than men. Do you think that this still holds true today? And if yes, what advice would you give to these women?
Joanna, it's a very important question. And you know, Maya Angelou said, get rid of negative women in your life, right? So it's really important that we seek out positive people and don't, and particularly young people, don't get burdened down with any negativity, because we need to share what we've all been saying on the call today, our sisterhood, and be with others that really are galvanizing and mentoring and supporting each other, and be honest with anyone that is not, that we have little time. All of us have cited on the call today the World Economic Forum and our impatience to hit gender equity, and we can only do that with supportive, positive women and men who we pull in as our allies. I know we all agree, but we just need to make sure that we're pulling together the voices as we've heard today with each other in such a positive way.
That is true. I guess this question was about a boss kind of situation where somebody is above this person.
It's very difficult, Joanna, and everybody will agree, because it has to be that the human resource people and the companies will not tolerate that. And you have a way, and if you really have a sponsor within a company or an organization, that sponsor will really be your advocate. But if it really is an untenable situation, you're better off getting help to get out and getting something that you love and people that support you.
Jessica, thank you very much, Eddie. Jessica, I have received a question from one of our members. How do you do outreach to needy women in Africa and Latin America who do not have internet access nor cell phones? Does PurePoint International also work through partner NGOs in Africa and other countries? If so, what NGOs do you work with in Africa?
Okay, great. Thank you for that question. So what I'll tackle the first question first, because I believe that that's directed towards World Pulse. And what I'll say there is half of women globally do not have access to the internet, which is a major problem. And so World Pulse helps to expand access in 3 different ways. One is channeling the voices of those that are online for advocacy to expand affordable access to government and policies. For example, the crowdsourced campaign that took place last year for World Pulse called She Transformed Tech, and which you will get the report if you sign up on World Pulse. And World Pulse is currently delivering this to the UN, the International Telecommunications Union, and other organizations. Second, World Pulse also partners with groups that provide computer access to basic digital literacy training in Africa. Specifically, we've worked with Intel and the She Will Connect program, as well as others. And we're happy to share local partners as well afterwards. You can please just feel free to reach out to me. And third, we've launched a Women's Digital Ambassador program, equipping and training women community leaders to reach those that are offline and illiterate. So today we have 130 women in 30 countries who have reached 1.2 million with digital awareness and skills for how to use their mobile phones and access to the internet sites to speak out. And the example that I gave earlier of Olutosin, where she was interested in working with women who didn't read and write, this is also an example of that. Olutosin reaching out specifically to this community to help bridge this divide. Additionally, many women of the network and within the network are starting their own cyber centers for women and training programs for women from the Democratic Republic of Congo to Afghanistan to Brazil to help bridge this digital divide. And then to answer your second question around PurePoint International, what I'll say is we have worked with international organizations on nationally, and this has been in different parts of the world. So specific to Latin America and to Africa, we have focused and have partnered in the past with Vital Voices. With the type of organization they have, it wasn't directly on concerns related to an active security concern and on the continent of Africa, but it was with their leaders and helping them to think about security and particularly in regards to the work that they do on the continent. And there are times where we are asked to weigh in or support an organization in thinking through a security concern. And a lot of times that information is confidential, so we aren't always in a position to give out the names of the organizations that we work with, but we're always looking for ways to continue to support these organizations with the challenges that they face. The second thing that I think is important to note about that is that depending on the type of conflict that's going on, we may not have the right information at that time to also give the information that's needed. So that's when we'll also reach out to our partners that may have more information about what's actually going on the ground to be able to provide the right information from a security standpoint.
But if you do lose a child, like a little girl in high school or in elementary school, if they don't learn how to love the STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, and math, do you still think that there is time to, make them, make love technology later in their lives? Or you think that it's going to be more difficult to steer them towards science and technology?
No, I absolutely think, I'm sure Edie has a response to this as well, but I would say that the way to get young women and girls involved in technology is to connect it to what they love. And so it's connecting it to whatever it is that they're most passionate about. And so even if it's related to, and I don't want to generalize or stereotype because I necessarily wasn't into these things when I was younger, but I'm just saying this to make a point. If they're interested in makeup, or if they're interested in dolls, if they're interested in fashion tech is a big thing right now, and thinking about how to connect these two. And there's a lot of really incredible stories of companies doing that. And so I think it's connecting. I think no matter what, you have to do what you love. That's part of what our nature and our calling is. I do think everything can be connected with technology. And so it's these different things that young women enjoy and connecting it with technology, and that is the way to bring, I think, their attention to this space and for them to find passion in it. If they find that they could have an impact that's much greater than what they realize through technology and doing what they love, then I'm sure that they would want to be involved in it. Or if they can do something faster and better, then I'm sure that by doing what they love, and technology is a way to make that happen, then I'm sure that would definitely happen. And we've seen this, I would say, I think just multiple examples. Even I think World Pulse can be an example of that, of connecting women worldwide for change and using a digital platform to do that, right? Creating a global sisterhood of women. And so I think that there are so many ways that young women can be involved in technology. And I also just want to share that the Girl Scouts actually now have a cybersecurity badge. So there are just multiple different ways that young women, through even traditional skills programs that they're involved in, can get access to and exposure to this.
Yeah, and also if schools do field trips in places that show off technology, there are some schools that will take children to data center out in Virginia in the technology corridor, and that is really educational for young girls. But most schools will do the usual, art museums that, not necessarily steer people towards technology. Maria, I have many questions for you. One of which is, how do you think that women's financial empowerment affects migration within one's country and immigrations to other countries? Do you think that if women especially were financially more secure, that there would be less of population movement among the Latin America countries or towards the US-Mexico border?
Absolutely. One of the things that we have seen is that whenever women have access to capital, whenever women have access to capital, they reinvest in their communities, and they reinvest in their communities, and for every dollar that a woman gets, she reinvests 90% of their community, compared to men that invest about 40%. So what we see is that getting the funds in the hands of women and of entrepreneurs allows them to develop their own families, their own business, their communities, and they will curb migration. What we've seen too is that a lot of the times the men are the ones that migrate first, and women stay behind with the family and without a bread earner in the family. And we find that is what really prompted them to then join the migration as well. So we have done some of this work in Nicaragua, and we've seen the migration diminishing throughout, towards the north, and also towards Costa Rica. We also see the importance of funding for women that are already in a business, because if they cannot get additional business funds to grow their business, then that also leads for them to have to move somewhere else to find new opportunities.
People have also asked, where does ProMujer get its funding? I see that you have answered here, but then somebody else insisted asking, what would be an average interest rate that you would charge the people that you give the loans for the services you provide?
So for the first part of the question, we get revenues for some of the services we provide. For example, we provide healthcare for an entire year for the family, and it's about $9 a month in Argentina. The price varies according to country. So Nicaragua, for example, the healthcare is about $3 a year for the family, $3 a month for the entire month, or the entire year, for the entire family. So it depends on the countries, and those funds help us. We're about 95%. Well, after depending on before and pro-COVID, we're about 95% sustainable on our own operations. We have a very slim operation, invested quite a bit of technology to allow for that. But we also really pursue philanthropic capital, both from individual donors as well as from institutional donors. We find that the philanthropic capital is crucial for ProMujer to support the innovation that we want to bring to women. So, for example, the entrepreneurship center that I brought up earlier is something that we're doing we're doing through a grant. So that money comes in as the seed money to launch a new product, a new service, a new initiative, and then we will find solutions to make it as sustainable as possible. Of course, there's some programs that are never going to be sustainable. For example, we don't expect to find sustainability in the programs that we support for domestic and gender-based violence, but that's what we are here for. So we're always going to be working on that. From the perspective of the interest rates, it depends. So on microfinance, the interest rates are regulated by each country in Latin America. So the interest rate in Bolivia would be very different than our interest rate from Argentina. Our commitment at ProMujer is that we were always going to be the low interest rate available. So we will always be under what the prescribed interest rate is by the regulators. From a perspective of the mezzanine, which this is the part of we do the investment, we do market rate investments. So those are the ones that are larger tickets. That's the one we do under the gender lens investment piece. And those investments come in with market rate, but they also come with technical assistance. So we have applied for grants. So the companies that borrow money for us will have to apply the lenses. They have to improve, optimize their workspace for women, or they will have to put in place a program to support female leadership. We have applied for grant on their behalf, and then we support that as well. So it's a win-win for communities, for the clients and the employees of those companies, but also for the companies.
If a woman to whom you have loaned money is not able to repay you back, what actions do you take from her?
Right. So there's different ways. So when you have a microfinance loan and they are under communal banking, the communal banking structure is a group of women. Usually these are women that have just entered the market and they don't have experience borrowing money. They don't have yet a full financial literacy program. They have not gone through a full financial literacy program. So the way they do is what they call solidarity support. So they will say, we're 5 women, one of them doesn't pay, that monthly payment is shared by the other 4. But we worked very closely with them on restructuring their loans. We worked very closely with them on changing the terms of their loans. And we work very closely with some of our own investors to allow us to, in some case, write off the loans. And in some cases, we will change the terms. So for example, as you may recall, Nicaragua went through a lot of social and political crisis about 2 years ago. And that was a lot of hardship on a lot of the women that were not able to open their businesses on a daily basis. And we were able then to postpone and restructured a lot of the loans, and some of them were forgiven. We have done that in all our financial centers for microfinance financial centers for the COVID crisis as well. Sometimes we also go to potential donors and look for grants that way as well, so we can alleviate them from any kind of financial hardship.
And what are the partner organizations that ProMujer has in Central America, in the Caribbean, or in South America?
So we work with a lot of local and international organizations in all areas, in digital literacy, in education, financial services, and healthcare. In education, for example, we work with Cisco, with Microsoft, with the large technology companies. We also work with smaller companies, and I already sent a note to Jessica saying, I'm gonna touch base with you because I think that World Pulse would be a beautiful partnership. We also work with the local governments and sometimes federal governments as well, and with other civil societies. For example, our whole work with gender-based violence is based on a partnership, because we then find a consortium of organizations that each one is an expert in each of these areas. Throughout the financial services, we borrow money from very established second-tier finance investors for microfinance. We also work with other organizations that are the deploy funds themselves, so the other microfinance institutions that we can then share and work with new insurance products for low-income women. We are developing products, for example, for low-income women that live in countries that have higher incidence of uterine cancer. So there's different things that we do, and we work very heavily with the global partnerships. So from a perspective of global partnerships, we work with Planned Parenthood, we work with the UN Women, we work with the Women's World Bank in Colombia, so different groups for different programs.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you to everybody, to all our presenters. This has been a wonderful and very eye-opening presentation. Sheila,
thank you.
from here.
Thank you so much. I would like to say many thanks to Edie, Jessica, and Maria for an outstanding presentation, and to Joanna for a great job moderating the program. Also, I would like to take this opportunity to invite you to our next programs. Our cultural programs for April is April 20, and this will be the presentation of the book Bombs, Bullets, and the Tank at the Office by a Foreign Service officer, Carol Stricker. It will be at 11 o'clock on April 20. The second one will be a wonderful tour, a guided tour to the Cultural Mexican Institute, and it will be also at 11 o'clock. We'll do that with a Welcome to Washington. So please join us to both events. You will enjoy the cultural, the Mexican Cultural Institute is a fantastic home, actually mansion that has a beautiful art. And of course, the history is amazing. So I look forward to seeing you. Thank you to everybody for attending, and have a wonderful celebration of Women's History Month, the whole month. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila.